So, what's up, my friend? How are you?
Good. Good morning. Hopefully audio is good.
Yeah, better than mine.
Well, it should be the same.
No, for some reason you're louder, and might just I don't know. This microphone sometimes it like it's louder than other times. It's weird, but you're
Yeah.
you're good. You're good. So
Good. No, I won't stay too long. I got a super busy day, and that's hence I haven't been posting videos a whole lot. Is I've been super busy, but I just had this crazy thought about leveling your playing field, right? Specifically, not just leveling your. And what I mean by that is, we got obviously the hate and discontent with carriers and brokers, particularly carriers against brokers, right?
Mhm.
So the thought I had was, well, first and foremost is what's your goals as a carrier and what's your capacity? Because if you have your own authority in your one truck, that's great, nothing wrong with that, right? But if you're mad at brokerages that are like, so you have one truck, so if you did a short trip every day, never took a day off, never had a breakdown, only worked on, you're just a stellar machine, you could do 365 short loads in a day, right? 350, yeah, 365. Now, depending again, if you're doing any longer runs, well, that's going to change. Now, the third thing is you could, as one carrier, conceivably, if you bought 2 more trailers, so say you had your own authority, just you as a solo driver, you could own 3 trailers. You could hire a local cartage company in the cities and where you are that you like to run, so that you hire someone local who does the local picks and drops. So you're not at just shippers sitting there for hours, and you're just turning and burning, click and go, pin to pin, basically, right? Never that easy, but the concept of that. So now you could conceivably double up your volume a little bit, right?
Mhm.
But put it in the perspective. It's kind of the reason I thought of this is in trucking. Obviously, everyone's like, "Well, we got to make more money. The way the brokers are paying us, it's not. We're not getting paid our worth per se."
Mhm.
If anyone, and I'll use a couple analogies. So there's the stories. Many have been on your channel that share the good old days of trucking, going to the truck stops where the meals were like homemade cooked meals. They were reasonably priced, right? Truckers gathered there, shared their stories. That's where the real community was, right? You knew
Mhm.
if you went to the truck stop, you'll always find someone who you can have a great chat with, um, and it didn't break the bank. So when those went away and things changed, and as a lot of carriers complain, like another subway, but the concept is, why hasn't anyone else changed and come back to that model, right? And the reason is the costs. And no different than a mechanic shop. You might say, well, mechanics charging us 180 bucks an hour. You go and open up a mechanic shop thinking I can do it for 110. And then after a while, you realize, well, for me to hire a qualified mechanics, I got to pay them more. The cost of operating is more. So we need more. And if you're a carrier, typically behind the truck, and then say, okay, I'm getting tired of these brokers, but brokers we need because sometimes, to sell off excess loads that you've secured from a shipper. So you think, oh, well, I can do it cheaper. Well, you'll get behind the desk, run that for 3 months, and then come back and saying, we can't afford to only get $50 a load as a broker.
Mhm.
It just doesn't work, right? It doesn't work. So when I say level your playing field, what's your capacity and what's your goals? Because if your goals are not to become a 10 plus truck carrier, you purposely went out and got your own authority, or you intentionally became an owner operator for a select company that you chose, and that's all you want the truck that you like, and you want to run the lanes you like, then to help alleviate stresses, don't worry about those. Play your playing in your level field, right? Like a solo broker can conceivably book between 1,500 to 2,000 loads a year. One solo person, because
Mhm.
you've seen my volumes, right,
Right.
Steve?
Yep.
So you times that by, if you have a brokerage with 5 people, let's say 1,500, right? I won't even go to 2,000. But if they're pushing out 1,500 loads a year and there's 5 agents, that's 7,500 loads. And if you're one, that's just a 5 agent office, right? And if you are pushing out yourself, let's take that scenario, because again, if you are one truck operator and you're doing 1,000-mile loads, well, that's minimum 2 days a week. So you're looking at 2, maybe 3 loads a week if everything worked out perfectly, right? You only took 1 day off. So let's say you did 50 weeks times 3. So it's 150 loads a year, right? Doing 1,000-mile runs 3 times a week. That's 150 divided by 7,500. That's 0.2%, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's 2% of that's 2% of a 5-person brokerage volume.
Right.
So, not to say you're not insignificant, but it's putting things in perspective of how much impact, like, you can sell yourself all you want. And you're now, where I'm going with this is, if I was a small operator, and I'm not saying small is bad, I'm just saying you have to be realistic to it. It's just like a mechanic shop. If you went out and you're a car mechanic or a welder, if you're a welder and you have a truck with the the welding station in the back, and people love your work, like, right? Every oil field company, when Steve does welding with his truck and he shows up on site, the quality is out of this world.
It would be too.
Right. But the issue is, you're one person. And when you've got 10,000 feet of pipe to do, how much are you getting done by yourself? Right. So, and again, how many cars can you fix when you're one mechanic? So where I'm going with this is that I've talked about it numerous times, is, for example, if I was a small one-person carrier and I have no desire, if my goal is to add 5, 10 trucks, that's a whole different conversation to have. I'm specifically talking about, you are a 4-truck carrier. Maybe you do have 5 trucks, but that's all you want. You're not trying to get to that next level, right? That's where you want to stay. You create a nice little business. So 1 to 5 trucks. And I would say, if you are working in the spot market, because remember, I define, I can't say others would agree, but I define the spot market as any freight that is not a contract, right? You didn't sign a contract to run this lane where they've set a flat rate plus fuel surcharge plus maybe extra stop fees, whatever, a specific contract with a broker or a specific contract with a shipper for specific lanes, right? This shipper, you signed a contract with this shipper to haul freight from their warehouse to multiple points, or whatever the case is. But it's just like you did this week. Some brokers, you've connected with some brokers, they offered you freight, you accepted it, or you went on the load board, however it is, but you're not getting it consistent. Like, you can't rely on it. It's just spot market. I call that spot market. You have network of people, and it's a spot market is what I call.
Right.
And so my theory would be, if I was in that position where, I'm not trying to become a multi-million-dollar trucking company. I just want to be me. I want to drive my truck. I want to be able to run when I want to run. I would create pillars. So if there's lanes that I like to run, and there's a shipper that's my go out load, that's maybe 50 miles. Let's say it's not even in your, like, I know for you have some shippers like literally in your town. But let's say your go out place that's always been good, that gets you where you've always wanted to go because they have the freight moving there. It's 50 miles away. Okay. So now you go there, instead of going into that facility, like, okay, hand them their card and try to get their business. But you know that they're like, if you're a 1-truck operator and you go to a warehouse and they have 50 docks or 40 docks or 30 docks, they have a lot of volume. So you might get in, but again, just think about it from the big perspective. So if I had a facility like that, where it's a fairly large facility, but I'm, and you see that there's different brokerages, I would forge my relationships with the staff there. Just like your story, the time that another Schneider guy, and then you talk the guy off the cliff, and then another person went in there and just say Steve, gave you the insight. And when just to talk the guy off the cliff, he had a perception, and that how you fix things. So imagine if you can go to a shipper and do that same idea. You forge a relationship with them, because this shipper they shop the market. They bounce between brokers. 1 month it's this broker, next month it's that. But you're not there to take away that broker relationship. Instead, you're you have a relationship with this broker, and all of a sudden that broker, you call them up and they say, oh yeah, we didn't get it this week. And you have enough of a relationship that you can call that warehouse not to take their business. Oh, hey, John, it's Steve. I called so-and-so, but they said they didn't get the loads this week. By chance, do you know who got those this week? Because I'm going to be available. Oh yeah, it's this company. Okay, great. So you call up that company and saying, hey, this is Steve. I pick up at this facility. I'm there every week. I know all the staff. Just I heard that you guys have now the business, and just seeing how I can get set up with you and how I can work with you, because I've been running this for years. I know this facility inside out. I could be a strong ally for you, right? So you're gonna play the fence. Who's ever got the business is your partner that month, that week, and you're gonna have relationships different. But like, you know, and where that comes in, and I'm sure you can attest to this, and other drivers can attest. When a broker tells a shipper, yeah, the truck is coming, it's coming, he's just running a little bit late on traffic, and they're like, it's Friday at 4 o'clock, everyone wants to go, he won't make it. But they're, you know, whatever, another broker, another late driver, but they say, well, it's Steve at like, oh, okay, no problem. They know you, they trust, because you consistently have been there. So when you could build that pillar for your go out load, and if you know that you have a certain facility that, like, say you always take a load from here to there, and then you bounce somewhere and you negotiate those loads for the bidder to get here. And there's another place that's your go home place. Whenever you can get to this area, there's this facility there that, again, if you get to this town, there's a facility there that you've hauled so many times, it gets you back right close to your door. Again, instead of looking at it as, I got to get across that broker and I'm going to get that bit. Well, if you want to do that, that's fair. No problem. That's a whole different strategy. I'm talking about leveling your playing field to build your business for your success. And to me, that's a way around it that would take away the stress in life, because what you're doing is, you know, when people know you at that facility, they know you're not a threat. You're not, you've never come in there saying, I'll take that business. Maybe the one day they'll just call you up, but they know you only have one truck. They ask you, right? Maybe you say, oh, I got 2 trailers or whatever, but that's it. So I just think, like, and it's like, you know, when you're, depending on what you're at, think about how many people ever think about what they're doing, just thinking, I'm the trucker, I got to get paid, or I'm the broker, I'm going to gouge the trucker, and I got to get, you know, gouge the shipper and take all this money. Sit back for a second and think about the user experience that you've provided, your interactions with the people that are offering you the freight. However, if you're working with a direct shipper or the broker, it does not matter. I'm just talking about, think about the user experience, what you've provided. What's their impression when you're done? And an example of that would be, let's take Holiday Inn Expresses, because they're all over the place, right? And some of them are franchisees. So it's just like, right, just like a McDonald's or a Subway or a broker agent, like I am. I'm an agent for a broker. And so there's the agent, and then there's brokers all around. Just like Holiday Inn Express, you got Holiday Inn Corporate, and there's, you know, they have a little different versions of names, but specific Holiday Expresses are, say, independently run. You're buying that brand and you're running that hotel. So you think, hey, every time we go to St. Louis, we've had a great experience at that Holiday Inn Express there. So now you're going somewhere else, Dallas or something, for the weekend. You think, hey, let's go to Holiday Inn Express. You go there, the place wasn't as clean, the staff weren't as friendly. Why is that? Right? It's exact same name. They look the same, totally different experience.
Right.
So, and where that can come from, it could be that owner in Dallas at that facility is cheap. He doesn't pay his staff as well. He's just trying to sock money for himself. So he forces his staff to cut corners. He doesn't, you know, get the staff to do as diligent of cleaning and so forth, doesn't follow up. And the training he's provided doesn't ensure that he's focused on getting his staff to provide the guests a great experience, right? So exact same, just like we can go to McDonald's and you can think, okay, McDonald's consistent. Not all the time, because most of them, not all of them, quite a few of them are, but in Canada, they're all independently operated. So one person would tend to own, like, if you look around how it works, if you start to study McDonald's, you'll see that, okay, one guy opened a business and he owns 5 McDonald's in this area. Then you go to another area and one person owns 5 or 6, and another person will own 5 or 6. You're going to get different experiences from each of them based on how their philosophy, if they're just trying to be cheap and save money, or are they trying to focus on the customer experience. So Like those are the little things. An example of that was, I was telling you, I was in Vancouver, Canada, a week ago, and taking Uber versus Yellow Cab, I'm telling you, it was a completely different experience. It was unbelievable, the experience. The Yellow Cab guy, because it's not a flat rate. So, and it's fair that it's not a flat rate. He says he gave us a price and says it'll be close to this, and based on the Uber, and it just happened to be that I was going to go Uber, but he pulled up, so we're like, okay, we'll hop in with you, no problem. But an example of that particular driver does not think about his user experience. So when if you're at a red light, you're coming to a red light and there's two cars parked,
Mm-hmm.
and you have guests in your back seat. Well, just take your foot off the gas and coast, because the light may change green, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
if you've been coasting, then as you get closer, you can ease into the brakes so that your back seat, the people in the back seat, don't even recognize that you're, really, not a hard move. But no, he's like forging ahead. Like we're driving, nothing crazy. All of a sudden, there's like two cars parked. I'm thinking, okay, red light, not a big deal. He puts his foot on the gas, forging ahead to these people, and then slams on his brakes. And then when he turns the corners, instead of just like casually, he'd be like, I told my wife, like, I literally I felt like I had whiplash. And then we come out to the last corner where we're going, and I turn into the corner, and he slams on the brakes because he wasn't paying attention. There's a car coming. He had to completely slam on the brake to avoid a crash. Like, we were like inches away. And like, it was just, and then they have the shield there, like unlike an Uber, like you just felt claustrophobic. There's stickers all over. The experience was not the same. I haven't been in Yellow Cab in a while. I've taken more Ubers when I've had it. And I can tell you that the experience compared to an Uber, and the fact that they have an app, but I couldn't put a rating or anything like that, or say what my experience was. So again, my perception now of a Yellow Cab, the next guy might be great. I mean, was he nice and stuff? Like, he helped us with our luggage and stuff. No problems there. But it was his driving style that I didn't like, because he was like constantly surging, like surging forward. He'd be gas it and stop. I'm like, why? There's like no one ahead of you. Why are you flooring it and then taking your foot off the gas? Just drive casual, drive consistent.
Well, to add to that, that same driver's probably griping about how Uber's taking over their space. Now, side note, anytime I've ever been in a Yellow Cab here in Springfield, I have feared for my life. Every single time, there hasn't been one Uber driver that made me go, ugh. Just every every single time for the last, I think I think I needed a cab like 30 years ago, and it's always been the same. It's crazy. And but you're right about the customer experience. In fact, I was telling my wife yesterday about the conversation I had with the broker, this new broker I started using. And even if it's a normal everyday situation, she's going to remember our conversation being pleasant versus the rude driver that hates brokers that also booked a load with her, because she had 3 of these. And maybe he got a better rate, maybe he didn't, but the experience in and of itself of talking to me versus talking to someone that's like, freaking brokers, um, is going to make me stand out. So she'll be happy to call. She'll be happy to take my phone call when I'm calling her for freight. And so that kind of goes with what you're saying.
Well, and also, see, I think for the most part, I think you would agree, most drivers who've gone out there, bought their own truck and trailer, either to become an owner operator or got their own authority, for the most part, have a lot of pride in their ride. So they do take the time. Their trucks are immaculate. They're DOT ready at all times for the most part, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you are a one MC holder, one truck holder with your MC, and that's all you want, but you run longer, if you're running shorties, it's a little different. But if you are running longer, where you got to put miles in your week to make your earnings, to make your living, there's nothing wrong with that. But it is harder when you're behind the wheel all day long, unless you're like, you're a robot, where you come off that truck after being on that truck for 10 hours. And the first thing you want to do is, after you eat, you're going to sit down and start studying the industry and learning all the new trends, what's happening. And you're doing that daily. And then when you get home, that's what you're doing. You're studying your books. You're doing this, right? you got to be a pretty hardcore individual.
Yes.
And so if you're running shorties as a 1/3 truck, you can maybe keep up. But if you're running longer, like coast to coast, I highly kind of would think having a dispatch service like yourself is helpful, only for the sake of vetting the brokers a bit
Mm-hmm.
more. Because when you're panicking, like, okay, it's Wednesday, I need this go home so I can get home by Monday. I've got this appointment for my truck, or I've been home in weeks. I need my go home time. When you get tired and you get panicked, you can make irrational decisions that you may come back and regret. So I think you have to really look at your business model, what you're trying to do. Think about if you're a one truck operator, you should think like the CEO of a $5 million trucking operator. If you're in the elevator with the CEO of Schneider,
Mm-hmm.
you should be able to have a conversation as if you had 100 trucks versus the one. You know your cost to operate. You know all the challenges that are happening there, because you're all going through the same thing. It's just that the capacities that you both have, right?
Mm-hmm.
You both have insurance issues. You both, well, they can obviously, the bigger you get, then you're eligible for uh, uh, fleet insurance, right? That
Right.
changes the game. But for the most part, if you are the MC holder, you're the president CEO of ABC Trucking. You have your one truck, maybe you have two trailers, but you should be able to have that conversation with the CEO. What's their thinking of if they're a $5 or $10 million CEO company, or $100 million trucking company? It's the same thing. It's just scales. So that's the mindset. Like what you've talked about. If you have one truck and that's all you want to stay at is one truck with maybe a couple trailers, and you're willing to be flexible in modes, you're willing to sell that trailer and get into something different, whatever. But the point is, your goal is not to bring on multiple drivers. Then it's your job is to nail down your costing. There's lots of talks about cost per day, cost per mile, all of that. There's different ways to look at your business. You have to look at your business and nail down your number that makes sense for you, that tells you the real numbers, right? Something that at the end of the week, at the end of a year, you know your numbers. You know exactly what you need, because once you micromanage that, now you're building up your networks, you're doing your marketing. And again, it's so worth it. Even if you only have one truck, pay the few bucks to get a domain web ad, like a website, which allows you then to get that domain email address. So you can get away from the Gmails, get away from the Yahoos and the Outlook.coms, create something, dispatch at ABC Trucking.
Mm-hmm.
And same thing with your phone system. If you're not willing to get a VoIP, go to your cell phone provider, and there's usually a form you have to fill out or an email you have to do. But you can have your call display to show up as ABC Trucking versus your name. And set up your system so if you do run longer and you run in areas where sometimes the cell phone coverage can be spotty. I get so many people, the cellular provider you've reached does not have a voicemail, or the cellular provider you reached, the voicemail is full. And this
Yep.
is a
I
this
hate
is
that.
this is a trucking business? Really? Like, set up your voice. If you're going to be driving and you don't want to take calls, have a professional voicemail, right? It's
um.
just set it up, but say something professional. That's the point. And check that
Yep.
voicemail and return messages. And you can pay for the fee to get the messages show up as text messages. But I highly encourage the VoIP system if you can. Like, go back to the DIY 3-hour presentation we did. Go back to the other ones that I've done on Steve's. We talk about the looms as a way to market yourself after a video, build that deep relationship. So there's so much doing, but I don't know how many are actually doing it.
I want to go back to your micromanaging comment. So a lot of at Schneider, one of the biggest complaints of the owner operators there is that they micromanage, right? So, and it's frustrating in the driver's eyes. And this is something that Schneider has to understand. Is because when you're micromanaging everything, but then you go to pick up a trailer and it's got two flat tires, no brakes, and the airline's busted, because the last three drivers left it like that. It gets kind of frustrating. But what I tell people when they get away from Schneider, when they get away from the mega carrier micromanaging, you have to micromanage yourself. And I think a lot of people forget that. It's like when you get like if you come over to like trucking, you get a lot of freedom. You can within the realms of our factoring company, you can book with who you want, you can book whatever you want as long as it's within our legal realms. You're in control of the ship. And a lot of people can't handle that kind of freedom. They need to be told every step of the way. They need to be micromanaged, right? And so, and they don't even realize it. So if you don't micromanage yourself, you're not on, because I guarantee you, if I'm in the elevator with the CEO of Snyder, he's got people, he's paid people to micromanage and know all those details for him. He may not know those things, but he's got people under him that do. And if the CEO was to go, so what's your cost running right now? I'm like, well, my last deposit slip was $5,000. Does that count? He's going to be like, you're going to last 2 seconds in this world. So you have to learn to micromanage yourself, micromanage your costs. It doesn't matter if it's a good market or a bad market. You run it the same. And it's just how you distribute the money at that point, whether it's a good market or bad market, because the bad times help you survive the good times. That's just law of nature. You feast, and then during famine, you fast and let your reserves go for as long as you can. But a lot of people need to realize that they have to micromanage themselves, and most people can't even pay attention enough to, do the right thing and take a shower and not be an a-hole to people on the phone or at the shipper receiving office.
Well, and that goes back to that whole discussion around, okay, so you went out and bought a truck, or you want to buy a truck. And the question is, do you stay as an owner operator, or do you get your own authority? And that's no different than that of a freight broker versus the freight agent. My thing would be is, obviously, depending on where you run. If you're only going to run 1 or 2 states, just doing simple dry van freight, no hazmat, no nothing else, then sure, getting your own authority probably is not the big deal. But if you want to be running beer loads or alcohol loads, and you want to run different states, you want to run interstate in different states, that's where I wouldn't close my eyes that you think you're giving up the 20%, but you're also giving up a lot of your personal time to get all those in the initial setups and the maintenance of that. So if I was in a shoes where I'm like, okay, I'm a company driver, I've been doing this for a while. Yeah, I'm tired of the slip seating every day. Different trucks, the dirty, blah, blah, blah. I want my own truck. Okay, that's fair. And so I'm gonna deal with that. But now it's like, how do I do this? Should I become my own authority, or should I join an owner operator? I would make a list of what your goals are, what you're trying to do in trucking. Then make a list of, if you find out, so you can go through the process, just write them down, type them, write them down, but every step that you have to do to get your own authority. Then find potential carriers that accepting owner operators and sit down with them and say, look at the states you're planning to run. And if they require special interstate authorities, if you do, like, hey, I live near somewhere where there's Budweiser's or some other alcohol brands or something, or hazmat. I was a hazmat driver. I want to keep doing that. As you know, there's a lot of costs and requirements along that. And so if you talk to an owner operator and you say, what are you doing versus what I have to do? If I'm with you, what are you doing for me? Like, what do you have in place versus what I have to do on top of that? Like, who's filing the IFTAs? How accurate is that? So I know I'm not getting gouged and so forth. And then you have to weigh, because sometimes having a carrier who has, like, with like having these different authorities in place where you don't have to go reinvent the wheel, start the wheel again, and assess, whether or not it's actually viable maybe it's more viable to give up that 20% so that you have a carrier. And also the other factor, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, obviously when you have one truck and you have a couple DOT incidents, even though you're immaculate, but they found something, one mud flap hanger, a headlight at the wrong time, even though you're always monitoring it, it can happen, right? So also you get this violation. Well, one violation of one truck really affects your rating on your insurance and perception of brokers. When you're an owner operator with a bigger carrier, if you have a violation, your number doesn't come down near as much because it's part of the pool of however many owner operators that carrier has, correct?
Yes.
So therefore, that in itself can be a significant factor. If you don't want to have to deal with a lot, because where I'm going with this, I've been talking, Sage has mentioned this, and I've been talking to Steve about it, but I didn't think it would happen so quick. But I recently came back from our annual brokerage retreat where we gather once a year. And it's amazing how fast, like Go Highway is one of them. Like, is it all revolutionary information? No, but what it's doing is it's capturing it all in one spot. So I can look up an MC in one location now. I don't have to dig around through the FMCSA. I don't have to dig around through different websites. But I can go into look at one MC, and I can tell you your VIN number of your trailer. I can tell you the VIN number of your trucks. I can tell you every DOT inspection you've had. I can tell you if there's crashes, and et cetera. And the crash is supposed to be kind of confidential. But the point is, the technology's out there, that it's AI, as far as it's been talked about, is I don't see AI replacing humans, but what AI I see happening is it's taking our current team, like our current TMS is able to integrate. And the two that are really big is gohighway.com, and the other one is parade.ai. Parade.ai. And we're utilizing those tools, and Parade.ai is allowing us that. So every agent now in our office, as soon as they create a load, it automatically, unless we uncheck it at the time of creating the load, will automatically post it to Parade through their network. And then essentially that blasted out to the DATs, the truck stops, etc., to multiple load boards, including 123 load board. So there's a lot of integration. That's really what I see. And then it's now gonna, basically the AI is gonna gather data faster. So that's why this is the time. And I've talked about this. When I say how many of you, I think the last time I came on, I said, it's May, go back to last year. What loads did you haul that you were happy with? Maybe they weren't the highest paying, but you were happy with those loads as far as ease of loading, unloading, etc. There's always that give and take. Some pays really high, but that comes with a price. Takes a long time to unload, and they don't pay attention, or they leave your trailer a mess and you got to clean it for an hour afterwards, etc. There's different things that you got to do, or you have to go to a site where it's harder on your suspension because you got to go through dirt roads, etc. So you got to weigh all these factors in a load. But with all these integrations happening, the way it's setting up, that's why you're seeing less and less brokers posting. They're creating them, more so they're creating their own internal load boards, is essentially what's happening, or they're tying it into these, they are posting it to that and so forth, but it's all coming from their TMS is what is happening essentially. So their goal is that more and more brokers are using these tools, so that freight that you're on, the goal is, if you're taking a load to, say, Texas, that over time you're going to start to see that more and more brokers are going to start to call you, hey, you're on this load with us, we have a load going out of Texas in that same town going back here. And they're going to, that back and forth. So the goal is that through these integrations, that having a good relationship with brokers or the shippers, however you're getting the freight, solidify those, re-solidify those. And but basically, you just really think of, if you're an owner operator or you have your own authority, what's the last image or the last impression you want left about your company, so that when people, if you leave a certain impression that you're looking for, do that consistently. And that's all I can say, is be consistent, build your brand and your level of customer service, and play in your playing field. So don't worry about the rest, right? Because trucking, well, I call it trucking logistics, because there's a lot more to trucking. There's warehousing, there's drayage, there's a lot to this world. Build your brand, be consistent, build your network, and keep solidifying those relationships. People at those brokerages may come and go, agents may leave, but if you ran a certain lane for that brokerage and all of a sudden say, oh, that person's no longer here, find out who's the next person that's covering that, right? And build those relationships. Build and look. You have to dig. I think I've sent you a couple of times some different companies, brokerages to call, the brokerages that you don't normally hear about, and that's, you got to find these. You got to be willing to send an email to some brokerages that you don't know. Especially, you can look up and see how long they've been around. But like I said, go back to the videos that I've done with Steve here before. Go back to the DIY 3-hour marathon presentation. But there's some nuggets in there. It's all chaptered. It's all in chapters on that 3-hour feed. You can skip ahead to the portions that you want to see about, and it's all broken down.
Excellent. Well, CDN, I
thanks so much.
appreciate your input. Thank you for coming on, and Go ahead.
No, that's
Promote
it.
your channel.
I just wanted to share those kind of crazy thoughts. I'm not sure if they're valid or not, but I know most here seem to most of your guests or the people in the chat know their lanes, they know their business, but you're always trying to help out those that are still maybe struggling or new to the industry.
Yep. We appreciate your input. CDN, you have a great day. Thank you.
Talk to you guys later.
All right, later. Hey, this is Snorelord. Thanks for watching this clip from one of my live feeds. If you don't mind, hit the thumbs up, subscribe, and we try to go live and we try to do some recorded videos. And hit the thumbs up, and it helps the algorithms. It helps the YouTube, Google gods. So thanks for watching.